They just walk in. All right. Hello. Hello. There. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Education Committee Subcommittee on Policy. Why don't we open up with a word of prayer? I will toss it down to my good friend and seatmate, number 17, Bethany Ballard.
If you'll bow with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for allowing us to come here together to serve the people of Georgia. Be with us today as we make good decisions for our children. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Representative. With that, while we're still in a good mood, we are going to recognize some folks in the room. If you are a student, please stand up and be recognized by this group. Young man in the front. Yep, there you are. All right. All right, if you are a teacher in the room, please stand up and be recognized. No teachers. They're all hard at work. Good. And then I want to give special recognition, because that's why they came to this meeting, Dyslexia Georgia. Would you guys please stand up? Thank you for what you do for literacy in Georgia. With that, Senator, would you please step up to the podium? And why don't we do Alyssa's Law first?
All right. Mr. Chairman, I'm not used to having a large captive audience just with me on the agenda, so this ought to be fun.
Welcome to House Education.
I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in the Senate.
Sounded like a threat.
The chairman knows I love him. So just real quick, I'm not going to, go back through the entire history of this bill, because I think we've provided testimony probably about 3 or 4 times, I know, over the last year. But basically, in a nutshell, this bill was created just to address school security, just based on we've seen just across the country with school shootings, and just trying to create more access in the school for public safety respondents, 911, and basically allow for technologies to be integrated into the schools, almost for basically real-time response for teachers and staff during an emergency. I know that this communication technology is over the majority of school districts in the state, and I know at some level of state government, including the state capitol, that we've utilized it. And so, Mr. Chairman, I know you have a sub with some language, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you. And we have up here, just to confirm, LC 49186S. 67S, my apologies. Yep. That's what we're reading from. First question before I open it up to the rest. I know you introduced this bill last year. Do we need to update any of the dates, or are those still, do you think, reflective of?
I think there were some dates, unless it's already updated in the sub, that didn't need to be. Well, it looks like they're updated.
Okay. Perfect.
I would just double check, but I think that there were dates, because I think I had old dates.
That's the changes to the sub.
Okay,
perfect. With that, I'm going to go to my right, Representative Townsend, with a question.
Hey, thanks, Senator. Appreciate your bill, and I know how important school safety is. Just a quick question. This is not a sole vendor bill, is it? Where you just have one vendor in the state or whatever else?
No, and I think we had language in this last session related to that, and I think the sub, even cleans it up potentially even more. So I deferred to, I know Chairman Hilton and also Chairman Irwin in terms of making sure that, there was opportunities for a competitive bid process.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good question.
We'll go down to my front here, number 6, with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill. It's definitely needed. How does this interact with or play in with House Bill 147 that we passed last year, the school safety plan? Does this data need to be incorporated into that school safety plan? And if so, should we say it needs to be incorporated? And I'll give you some background. The reason I say that is I have found with the school safety plans that unless we are very clear that it's left to interpretation, and so we're running into some problems, I know, in Cobb County with their interpretation of 147 and the legislative interpretation of 147?
So I'll just answer it this way, being a former school board member, that in some ways I will, and I'm sure they're hopefully here in the room, let the school districts and even Homeland Security, I think, address those concerns. I don't know how stringent you would want to write it into law, but I would think if from a security perspective, if we're talking about the security plans, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, and I'll follow up with that. If we're going to say they shall do something,
Right.
then I think we should say that if you have this over here, we want to make sure that that plan does not match with that plan. And I don't, from what I've seen, I don't think we can, and it's not just my area, I think it's all across the state, that we can't
Right.
necessarily count on them of doing something that important.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I think from my perspective, in terms of security planning, I would think that would already be incorporated into the security plans, or at least noted. But I will let my my dear friend and constituent from Homeland Security from GEMA to maybe talk on how they've been managing that with the local schools. I guess my other concern is not to necessarily box them in, but I would think from a data sharing or planning perspective, you would think that would already be, included. At least that would be my perspective. At least I know my counties do that.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
It's a good
just thought
question.
about- yeah, I say we're boxing them in already, so let's link the plans together for the safety of the kids. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Being the chair here, I'll ask what's hopefully a friendly question. The state has a number of counties, municipalities, some I would assume with better 911 systems maybe than others. Is there a consistency and capability amongst all these, or are we creating an unfunded mandate of any kind that would require county, city, schools to get up to speed on being able to offer this?
I would just say, I guess, say, I don't want to be trite, but I think, common sense would say, I think obviously our rural schools are more cash strapped than others. I do think with the General Assembly's, commitment to funding school security permanently going forward, I think that money can apply to this. And I think there's, I represent a couple of Lowell school districts. I know you do too, in terms of, top equalization dollars and things like that. And I know this is a priority for our superintendents in terms of, budgeting. So I think, there's a way to do it. I think if you're planning right, and I think getting, support and input from experts like GEMA and others as you're turning in those school security plans, but also think too, the smaller counties, obviously they have fewer schools than my county I live in, which would have, somewhere between 33 and maybe over 40 buildings that they're trying to secure. So, I think there are some of those dynamics, but I don't know that I could speak to what the impact is for every county or city, the 180 schools in the state. But I think just in terms of security itself, the technology is where I think everybody's moving towards, to give every bit of data to first responders if there's a school shooting or a medical emergency or somewhere else, to find that teacher, staff member, student, or even parent, where they're located in that building, hopefully, instantaneously as possible, which we know historically is sometimes a challenge even with the best technologies.
Yeah, and it shows it works. And I appreciate you bringing this bill. The chairman of our education, Chairman Irwin, has said from the very start, our priorities, and y'all could probably shout them out with me, are literacy, school safety, and good policy. And so this falls squarely in that area. Not seeing any other questions for the author, I'm going to open it up to those who are here to speak to the bill. I've got two speakers. Director Stallings, if you would come to the mic.
Good afternoon, sir. I also have with me Greg Whitaker, who is the Executive Director of the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority, and Alicia Wright, who is the Deputy Director as well. So we think this bill is written very well, but to Representative's point there, we just want to make sure that from the way it's written great for the schools, but does it also protect the 911 centers that are responsible for this? And I just bring that up in a way that there's monies to put a technology in a school system, but are there monies available for upgrades of 911 centers, 911 capabilities. We have 911 centers all across the state right now in some of our larger metro areas that are facing staffing issues. 911 calls going unanswered. They're being dialed directly into the 911 number itself, not in this instance a digital pop-up on a screen or a 10-digit code, because these are designed to dial into the non-emergency line, most of the technologies. So in the vein of what the senator mentioned, is that we could, if there's a way to look into this and ensure that we're seeing equitable response in the 911 community, because we don't want to say the schools, you're going to have something, and the schools say, all right, we got it, but our 911 centers can't handle it. Our staffing is short on that side. So I think the role of this committee is obviously, as you said, to put forth good legislation that's reasonable, that's also applicable. And I think the concern that we have, and if you would allow me to give some of my time to either member of GEEC if they have any further statements, but it would just simply be that that we make sure we're taking care of the 911 centers in this bill, that we're not overloading an already very overworked system when we have a lot of schools that have school resource officers, and we have a lot of things now. And to the senator's point, we have come a long way since the origination of this bill. House Bill 147 was a phenomenal bill, the Safe Schools Act, that has pushed a lot of this. To the representative's point, we're getting there. We're not there, but we're getting there in a lot of ways, and you could use some more conversation maybe on how either tying this into 147 and encouraging that, so that those state dollars that are allocated in this budget are defined a little more specifically. And I know the representative who carried that is in the room. He's very familiar. We worked a lot on that bill, and I really think it's a great bill. We just want to see that our 911 centers aren't put in a place, and I'll say this as generally as I can, put in a place to make a mistake. We want our 911 centers to be successful. We want this alert to go to who it needs to go to, when it needs to go to, and that it is responded to accordingly. So that's my my platform on it, sir.
Thank you for the testimony. I'll put it very specifically. I live in Gwinnett, where we are short, or at one point in the summer, about 40 FTEs, and I had a constituent whose husband was having a heart attack, and while that was taking place, she sat on hold on 911 for 12 minutes, waiting for someone to pick up, which is absolutely unacceptable. And so they are under a lot of stress, and so you bring up a valid point. But you do have a question from number 15.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for referencing that School Safeties Act. But I like what his aim is. I agree with the policy position. The other component, not just the staffing side, that I have concerns with our infrastructure and the ecosystem of all the towers that we have across the state. I'm hopeful that the House and the Senate will work together to study kind of what can we do from a capital outlay standpoint to help communities with some one-time money to improve towers. I know my community has made a decision. The voters have approved a local SPLOST that will fund an emergency operations center, an updated 911 facility, but the costs associated with meeting today's technology as well as the call volume and the technological demands on a system are requiring a huge expenditure that, you know, they're trying to find the dollars to make that work, and they may have to finance it. They may have to put off part of that project. And I'm thinking that issue is not just, you know, something that's facing my community. I think it's a statewide issue. So I hope that we can work together and with your group to come up with some best practices and recommendations. Also to have some purchasing power to be able to ensure that taxpayers that are funding those, whatever mechanism it's done, is done so that we're not paying top freight, doing one-off, you know, short-term improvements, just doing Band-Aids to that infrastructure. I'm learning more about it, so I will admit that I don't know as much as I'm sure your team does, but I too have that concern that the infrastructure piece may not be ready with efficiency in lots of places in the state. So just wanted to share that thought. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question for you, Representative Evans, number 8.
Thank you so much. So do you have any recommendations for language for the bill, or
So-
does it just still need more conversation?
I think maybe some more conversation, because the language of this bill is wonderful. We are just as concerned as the safety of our students. As a matter of fact, our Homeland Security side, our field coordinators are dedicated every single day. They're in a school somewhere, working with a school, trying to improve a safety plan, a Stop the Bleed program, something to make our schools safer. That is our heart and passion. So this is not here to say we're not in agreement that this needs to happen. We just, if we're going to offer a good solution, we need to be able to put it into practice on both sides. Again, for the schools, making it simple, convenient for the schools. As we know, dialing 911, if there's another capability to get that call out, as we've seen recently, and I hate to keep referencing Cobb County there, but we just had an incident where there was a school where a shooting occurred. And so at that district, 911 was called, and there was a lot of confusion in multiple 911 centers and different agencies showing up, some going in, some staying out. It created some confusions. And so I think with this bill, if we're careful and we do it correctly to support the 911 centers as much as we are the schools, I think we are able to put together a piece of legislation this is good legislation. It's being carried all over the country. So we're not arguing that side. We just don't want to put something out and say, hey, we've done it. Unfortunately, we're never going to be able to use it. And it's the infrastructure piece. I mean, we just recently heard of just a basic upgrade for technology in a 911 center that was over $300,000. And so when you get into some of your more rural, I joke, and this is not a joke, but it's very true, there's two Decatur's in our state. There's a city and there's a county. And the only thing in common is how they spell it. There are different worlds, different budgets, different infrastructures, and we need to be able to provide for both Decatur's as equitably as we can with this bill.
Yeah, one more. Yeah, one more. Yeah.
Just so I follow, so it's like this is potentially an unfunded mandate if we don't do something on the budget side to help our 911 centers. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think so.
All right, thank you.
Okay. You mentioned you have another speaker. If they would come up, is it Greg Whitaker?
Yes, sir. Greg
All right,
Whitaker.
awesome.
Yes, sir.
And Greg, mention your title when you get to the podium there. Thank you, Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Greg Whitaker, 1G, 1T. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority. And Director Stallings said a lot of what we agree with. This is good legislation. We like Alyssa's law, but we want it to work in the state. And at GECA, our acronym for Georgia Emergency Communication Authority, we work with the PSAPs, the Public Safety Answering Points, the 911 centers on their level. And there's a lot of moving parts to this. In order for it to work, the infrastructure has to match with what they currently have. If they have to update, there's no money to update. That's an issue. One of the things that we look at is PSAP funding daily. It's been mentioned that this is possibly an unfunded mandate. That's going to cause a problem for a lot of our 911 centers, especially when you get into 911 centers. We can work on, someone mentioned writing guidelines or ways to make this work. We can work on that as we go, but if there's no money to begin with, then it's going to be very hard to, for a lot of the centers, like Director Stallings was saying, the Decatur counties or the rural agencies to implement this. You know, and when we implement it, we can look at, or when it's implemented, we can look at things like the actual way the system works. I know that we had talked with Senator Anna Vittardi last year. He was gracious to let us talk to the people helping put the bill together. One of the concerns we had was, you know, how's this going to get to the 911 center? Is it going to come over software that belongs to the vendor, the alarm company? Is it come over a third-party vendor called Rapid SOS, which every PSAP pretty much in Georgia has now? Or is it coming in on a 10-digit line? If it comes in on a 10-digit line, that's going to be a problem. In 911 centers, you have 911 trunks, the 911 lines, and you have non-emergency lines, 10-digit lines. If those alarms, if those school alarms are coming in on a 10-digit line and the 911 lines are ringing, the 911 lines get priority, period. So you may have some things that get missed. So that was a concern we have as we go forward. And we can work with Department of Administrative Services, as you said earlier. Someone said earlier, we'll be calling the shots or putting together the requirements. If that's the case, then we can work through those things, hopefully. But if there's no money, it's going to be hard for a lot of our centers to implement this. And I think everything's already been said that I wanted to mention, but thank you for your consideration. This lies on the 911 centers to get this passed. This ends and begins with the 911 centers. And thank you for your time today and your consideration.
Perfect.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, stay up in the hot seat there. We've got two questions, one to my left. Representative Cox.
Thanks for this bill. Obviously, I'm a huge supporter of it. I'm concerned about structure and how we're going through this process. And I was taking some notes, so you coming up was perfect timing. But public safety seems to be the focal point where all of this should, I guess, a mission critical center would originate, right? So that we have education as a piece of the mission critical center, and then you have ambulances, the police, and all of that. I'm not sure how we're going to integrate everything based off of this bill. And part of me, I'm thinking it's cloud service. I don't know. Is that kind of some of the experience and how the data is being protected and interacted between different agencies?
Representative, I imagine that would vary from PSAP to PSAP, county to county, depending on what service they use now, what school alarm, because this technology already exists in a lot of school systems, and people are using this. It is working. So I imagine that would just depend on their budget, how their infrastructure is set up. But yes, sir, that could be an option, a cloud-based. But the getting back to I hope I understand your question. When the school alarm comes in, it's up to the PSAP, the 911 center, to, for lack of a better term, triage that call. And we're talking about this alarm, the spirit of the law, Alyssa's law goes back to pretty much school shootings, mass shootings. The 911 dispatcher still has to figure out what's going on. If this technology is implemented, there will be accidental activations. They're going to get accidental activations. Some of it may be abuse. Some of it may be a fight in the parking lot. Maybe an educator or a faculty member can't get to a phone. Maybe they're breaking up the fight. All the thing they can do is press their alarm button, and now the 911 center gets it. So these are checks and balances we'd have to have put in place on the local government level. Whoever's responsible for that response would have to make that in their dispatch protocol, that if you get an alarm, there may be verifications or validations before you send a full response, or whatever that local government decides to come up with. It would be it would be their decision for whoever handles the public safety or the law enforcement in that agency. But the school board is only one component of the school side. The education side of it is one component. As Director Stalin said, it works good to get to the PSAP, but once it gets to the PSAP, what do we do with it then? And it would vary. The PSAPs that are able to implement this technology, I would imagine that they would get together with whatever public safety committees they have, maybe the Board of Education members, and maybe write that protocol on how it pertains to their particular situation. But as we know in Georgia, every county is different, every school board is different, and that would vary from school board to school board, county to county, would be my best guess.
The interaction between various school boards with public safety across the state would be concerning to me, that you have all these individual programs happening. Instead, it would seem to make sense that it would originate from the state standpoint and flow into the schools. And I know there are vendors where if someone came into the classroom, I know students, they have programs or platforms now that exist, that if there's a shooter in the room, the kids can quickly hit a text, and then they can quickly get a visual of what's going on in the classroom. So now you have all your students with cameras technically that can be utilized. My concern would be that we would have all these different counties doing different platforms, not integrating. Instead, I think it should originate in the public safety standpoint and go out that way. But anyway, that's just some thoughts. But I love the bill. Just we got to dial in exactly how we make it effective.
Yes, sir. You mentioned all the students having cell phones. That's another component down on the PSAP operations level that would concern us, because if you are receiving a school alarm, if there's an incident going on which entails that kind of activation, that means that students are calling 911 as well. Teachers, faculty, parents. So the 911 center is flooded, right, potentially. And now you've got this other component coming in. This is why we would need it to integrate with existing components that are already in place, that are already being dispatched or already being monitored on each dispatch console, so they don't have to create another discipline, another dispatch area, so that they are just monitoring school alarms. That is one component we're very concerned about.
Well, I know we've got another question, but I'm going to make a kind of an executive decision here. I'm hearing, it sounds like we're at the 5-yard line. I'm hearing a lot of, we like it, we like it, we like it. We got some things to fix. So what I'm going to ask is GMA, the author of the bill, get some time on all of our calendars together. Let's iron out what we like, what we don't like, perfect the bill. And then I'm going to ask the chairman if we can't maybe get this into full committee sometime next week. And so if y'all are amenable to that, I think that might be a good strategy going forward. And I'm seeing a thumbs up, head nod. Okay. Well, thank you guys for a very good discussion, very, very helpful on this bill.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker.
Yes, sir. Was there one more question, or?
I know we've got another bill to consider. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. With that, we are 2 for 2. Senator, we're all about efficiency in education here, so.
I just love you like my bills. So.
We love your bills.
All right, this one may take a little longer, but I'm gonna piggyback off of Representative Cox's comments there about cell phones and cameras and that whole conversation. So let's I guess dive in. So Senate Bill 351, we call it the Protecting Georgia's Children on Social Media Act of 2024. And this bill came about with myself and our Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones, as both of us 2 dads with young kids, like many others, just concerned about the accessing of content, the accessing and dealing with social media apps in school, the disruption that causes to those learning environments, the security concerns, trying to make sure that there's parental consents, but also too, just my wife's a teacher, so just knowing that the impacts on classroom time and distractions that is to the teacher, the staff, the learning environment, and on and on and on. I think y'all know the drill when it comes to that. So I'm going to, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'm going to just, while we're in subcommittee, go through each section. I'll let y'all stop, ask questions. I don't know if Brad Vaughn, he's not here yet. He may show up. He helped write this bill, and we also got input from a lot of different education groups, and we want to thank them for their input to get this bill almost perfect. Hopefully, when we obviously leave the House, I know y'all will want to make it perfect. But I'm just going to go forward, and y'all just stop me as we go. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So just going to Part 2, Section 2. This section amends existing law regarding comprehensive character education programs, requires the beginning in 25-26 school year with the Department of Education to include such program information and materials regarding methods of promoting responsible digital citizenship and the safe and appropriate use of technology, the internet, and social media. Basically, school boards will be required to implement programming no later than the 25-26 school year. Part 2, Section 2, Number 2, this section requires the Department of Education to develop and publish on its website model programs for students in grades 6 through 12, which includes the social, emotional, physical effects of social media on users, the effects of social media on mental health of users, the distribution of disinformation and misinformation on social media, how social media manipulates or influences thoughts and behaviors, the permanency and risks of sharing materials online, how to maintain personal security and identify cyberbullying, predatory behavior, human trafficking on the internet and social media, and how to report suspicious behavior encountered on the internet and social media. So one thing you will find in this bill as we continue to go forward is that this bill updates for the first time, I believe, in over a decade, the cyberbullying statute as it relates to this. So our current laws before this legislation basically kind of reflects what it's been and like before we've had social media apps and as technologies evolved. So I think this kind of brings us up to speed a little bit. And the other piece too that I just mentioned in terms of human trafficking, without obviously getting into details or sensitive details, but I mean I have found in some communities, human trafficking exists in our high schools. I know there are known cases where local prosecutors, our U.S. Attorney's Office is working on active cases today of human trafficking that started on a device in a school setting and was tracked to potentially other students or others. So I think, I know we talk about, and the First Lady of Georgia talks about human trafficking on many levels, but I don't know that parents and guardians, even in some cases in our school environments, we realize that is starting or becoming way more prevalent in a school setting and not just outside of school or in a home or other places where kids may be using phones. I'm probably the one legislator, and not to start a controversy, that would say, kids in K-5 don't need cell phones in school. That's a separate debate, not to start a whole nother conversation. But I know teachers in my school districts, parents in my community would support that. But maybe that's a bill for next year. Me and you, Mr. Chairman, can drop. Not to scare everybody in the room. Just to continue on. So such programs may include information regarding benefits of social media use, supporting career readiness, future academic success, employment opportunities, sharing information with families and friends, and then safely connecting with users of similar interests. And so basically the Department of Education would help work with the local school districts as they usually do on policies. Part 2, Section 2.3 requires by April 1st of 2026, each local Board of Education would prohibit and prevent students from accessing social media platforms through the use of computer equipment, communication services, internet access that is operated, owned, leased, or otherwise provided by the local Board of Education, local school system, or public school. Part 2, Section 2.4, this goes into what I just said earlier about modernizing the bullying and cyberbullying statutes, requiring that local boards no later than July 1st of 26 update policies related to cyberbullying and bullying. In addition, meeting current legal requirements, policies be required, including notifications to victims and perpetrators related to bullying, regarding counseling services.
Senator, sorry to interrupt. I think y'all were wondering what line we're on.
I'm just giving a summary. I'm not going line by line. Right now I'm in Part 2, Section 2.4 of the bill. I'd have to find the line. I'm not looking through the bill.
Page 7. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Part 3, Section 3.1. This part requires social media platforms to make commercially reasonable efforts to verify the age of account holders and treat as a minor any individual. The platform that verifies under 16. Platforms must prohibit anyone under the age of 16 from opening a social media account unless the platform obtains express consent from the minor's parent. We did get a lot of feedback from the industry, social media companies on this section. I think, some may have debate or don't like it, but I will just tell you from my viewpoint and the Lieutenant Governor's viewpoint is that, if you're a minor, you're under 16, I think we should make commercially reasonable methods and pathways for minors, for guardians and parents to give consent or require consents for minors to have access to Facebook or whatever that social media app that a child's trying to access. Towards the end, basically the Attorney General would have enforcement power, and I do have a language amendment, Mr. Chairman, at the end of line 426, after the word chapter, and this was a request from the Attorney General's office, and the authority to take action pursuant to Part 2, and I'll provide this to you. Part 2, Article 15, Chapter 1, Title 10 of the Fair Business Practices Act of 1975 And I think that's just in regards to litigation and other things that are currently going on, just so that they're able to not be interfered during that process. But I can provide that to Mr. Walker. That's pretty much all I got.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing what I think is as a parent of 3 young kids who have waited as long as I possibly could to get them a cell phone. A good bill here. Just to toot my own horn, I guess. I sponsored House Bill 1186, which made it through judiciary, very similar to this. Unfortunately, didn't make it across, but look forward to trying to support this here. Any questions from the committee? We'll do questions first. Number 6 down front, Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lines 60 and 61, grades, we're adding grades 6 through 12. Since there already currently a model program in place, is there a model program for grades K through 5 currently for use of social media?
I'm just looking.
So I guess current law says that the Department of Education, maybe this is a DOE question, has developed a model program talking about online safety. But what we do is we're adding where they can have multiple programs, but we're also saying that it's limited to 6 through 12.
So you're saying you want to basically just apply it to K through 12?
I would say K through 12 would make sense if that's what they're already doing. I just want to make sure that we're not pulling back on it.
Yeah, I get where you're going. I will say, if you got a kindergartner, they're on a social media app, we may want to have a sidebar conversation.
No, I agree. That's why I'm not limited to that. I don't want to change what's happening now because my kids told me they were the last 5th grader to get a cell phone.
Yeah,
So
my only concern with that is I don't know that, if we're promoting policy or training kids on appropriate use of social media, I don't know if that makes the situation worse or better. I'll let y'all do what you want to do, but again, I'm not a proponent of, kids having, phones in a K-5 environment. That's a whole conversation, Representative.
Mr. Chairman, last question.
I
guess is putting the rule in place promoting the behavior, or is the behavior already there and using it in the classroom? I don't know. Do 5th graders use cell phones in school?
I've
And
seen
if they
5th
do-
graders, 4th graders, 3rd graders. I've actually even seen a 2nd grader.
Okay, so we probably need a policy to limit their behavior.
Personal responsibility would limit their behavior, but
All right. We're going to do one more question down front. Number 8, Representative Evans. You're up.
Oh, I'm generally supportive of the bill, but it is a big bill. Are we going to be voting on it today, or can we study it a little bit more? Or are you planning on voting on it today?
Up to the will of the committee, but I would like to take a vote on it if we can. Yeah, the goal of today is with any subcommittee, spend the time to flush out any questions. I know we've got 5 or 6 folks who've signed up to speak, so if you want to hear from
maybe
the
we should hear from them, and then
Okay.
could we reserve time for
Yep.
for questions? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
With that's perfect timing. Great segue. Senator, if you want to stand aside, we do have 5 folks stand up, and I've got this room for another kind of 20, 25 minutes or so. So I'm going to ask the audience, if y'all could limit your comments to 2 to 3 minutes max, that would be great. I'm going to start with my man, Nathan De Silva. And Nathan, while you're up, he testified on my bill, House 1186, and I'm just thanking God every day he doesn't live in my district because he would beat me in a race. But he is a talented 15-year-old. Yeah. My goodness. Y'all are in for a treat. So, Nathan, I know you're passionate, brother. 3 to 5 minutes if you can. Go for it.
Okay. My name's Nathaniel De Silva. I'm 15 years old. I'm part of the Fulton County Youth Commission, and right now I'm representing the youth of Fulton County. I'm here today to express my support for Senate Bill 351. Every rose has its thorns. When we as humanity decided to grasp the rose of social media, the allure of instant connectivity and collaboration, our fingers and our youth now have thorns stuck in them. The lure of the rose has caused addiction, and there are 2 thorns: cyberbullying and sharing, and content with connections. First is the lure or addiction. Social media is often referred to as the cigarette of our generation. The only difference is we have 8-year-olds smoking it. I'm here as a 15-year-old, and I've seen its troubling widespread effect all around me. Social media software was never designed for kids, yet the Surgeon General's office finds that 95% of teenagers, and even more troublingly, 40% of kids aged 8 to 12 are using social media algorithms underage. And these numbers aren't happening because these people are asked to join or advertised to join. It's this AI in social media that's to blame. It was developed with psychologists to be incredibly addicting, and it leads to the same amount of addiction as pathological gamblers and drug abusers. 2 is cyberbullying. It's incredibly prevalent. Out of the 75% of teens who've used Facebook, over half have been cyberbullied on it at least once. Half of US teens in total have been cyberbullied or harassed online, and that has led to identity issues. The pursuit of perfection, perfect faces, perfect personalities, they've just accelerated exponentially, and I've seen it with my own eyes. And while it might seem like that's fine, it's just connectivity, this constant use of filters and photos has perpetuated a mindset of constant over-perfection. And as everyone knows, that's never obtainable. Instagram's own study finds these algorithmic filters have led to body issues in more than 1 in 3 teen girls. And 50% of teens find that after using social media, they feel directly worse after. The third is content and connections. The FBI's director finds that 85% of pedophilic child grooming incidents occur on social media. He goes so far to say that the kid who is playing by himself at the park is not even close to the amount of risk for the kid who's sitting with an iPad in his bedroom. And even if it wasn't that prevalent to be easily sexually harassed and groomed online, extreme, inappropriate, and harmful content is easily and widely accessible by little children. And this content isn't just pornographic. It encourages suicide, eating disorders, and that's led to the CDC finding that self-harm inflicted injuries are now the second highest cause of death. So now the question arises, what's the solution? Just like a thorn injury, you take out the thorns and you bandage the hand. The first thorn in this bill is solved through awareness programs and enforcement. Cyberbullying is often not looked as important by school systems, and through mandatory enforcement, we solve. The second thorn is addiction. In this bill, it stops unauthorized collection of user data and usage other than age and location. That weakens the addiction from the AI. And the third thorn, 1 is grooming and 2 is content. And that's stopped with the age restriction. Because it says that the provider of a social media program shall not allow kids under 16 to use social media without parental consent. That's incredible. Using social media underage has been found to cause issues in brain development in the future.
Nathaniel, about 30 more seconds if you can.
Yeah, I'm almost done.
You're all
my last
good. I love
sentence.
you. Yeah.
Yep. Every phone that a little boy or little girl possesses is a portal to child predators, to self-harm, to bullying, and to psychological war. But we live in Georgia. We live in the USA. And just know that today, this bill gives you that opportunity to put that little boy and little girl first.
Hey, give him a round of applause, committee. 15 years old. I got to be honest. I didn't hear a word you said. I was thinking that every rose has its... You're not old enough to know poison. All right. Thank you, Nathaniel. Fantastic job. I'm going to invite Mr. Griffin up to the mic to speak next. Thank you. And you'll hang around afterwards?
Yeah.
Get his autograph, guys. He's going to go places.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Griffin. I'm the Public Affairs Representative for the Georgia Baptist Mission Board, and that's a hard act to follow. But anyway, excellent job. And in representing Georgia Baptist, we do represent the largest faith group in the state, up to about 1.4 million Georgians and up to 3,400 churches. And I work not only with the public affairs responsibility part, I also work with child protection policy. Georgia Baptist partner with Ministry Safe over in Texas with Greg Love. And I did at least probably 7 workshops in dealing with protection against child sex abuse here in our state. And one of the things that we saw is that we're living in a day where there is a tremendous over-sexualization of children that's taking place, and a lot of it is happening through the media, through social media, and certainly happened since 2020 when more children are having access to the internet. And while I was teaching during our Spark conference, we call it, for our Georgia Baptist churches, Greg Love sent me an email and gave me an update. And we typically see child sexual predators, it's adults abusing children. But because of the change that's happened in the access that children now have to pornography and obscenity and those types of things, he said for the first time the calls regarding sex abuse now, 52% are peer-to-peer abuse. Used to it was adult to children. Now it's peer-to-peer because of this over-sexualization. I've seen data saying that children are now being exposed to pornography from the ages of 9 to 10. I mean, things that it might take me, when me and Rick were growing up, to 3 months to find on the side of the road, you might be able to find in 3 clicks on an iPhone, and not just pictures, maybe even movies. And so you have this, what is taking place. We did a resolution in Georgia Baptist back in 2017 talking about the moral, social, and public health crisis created by pornography and the impact it's having on our children back in 2017. And so, and again, the majority of, and I've seen data that the majority of children being exposed to pornography was unintentional by the child. In other words, the pornography has a tendency to be seeking after them. So we definitely support this legislation, would encourage the committee's favorable support. We need to be doing all that we can to help protect our children. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
And thank you, Senator, for your presenting this bill. We appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, we will go to Mr. Kyle Rodler, ParentsSafetyAlliance.org. Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for all the great work that you do, and I have much respect for everything that you guys do on a day-to-day basis. I know a lot of people don't thank y'all. I'm here to represent every parent in this country. I have 2 daughters that go to a private school. They have no police there. We pay a lot of money for their education, but they have no security. So that was the genesis of the Parent Safety Alliance. There's a education bill 20-2-1185 that was passed in 2020, and it requires parents and students to be included in all of the emergency preparedness planning. I would like Parent Safety Alliance to be that voice for all students and parents throughout the state. And there's also 2 paragraphs in that bill. The one for public schools says shall, and the one for private schools says may. I would like you guys to change the word may to shall for private schools, so all private schools will also be protected by the public standard protection resources and funding, so that all kids will be on the same level of security no matter what school they go to. I would also like to request that we could possibly include daycares and elder care facilities, because they're just as vulnerable as any elementary school or daycare. Furthermore, I invented the AllSafe app, which is like Uber for police. On an officer's off day, he gets paired with the nearest school, nearest church, or nearest Little League that he can guard the kids. He makes the same amount of money. It's paid for by private donations and private local businesses. So we're funding this movement. I would love if Georgia could open up some opportunity to grants or other funding sources that we could use. We'd like to also employ ex-military that have training with people being shooting at them, to where they would not be flinching to somebody having a long gun. They would be going towards the person, because that's the training that they've received in the military. Also, we have an AI bot that I've built with the Georgia State University capstone students that are seniors and graduate level students. Also, Georgia Tech is working on this with us. Our AI bot scrapes social media posts, and when it finds something that's troubling on the public pages only, it screenshots it and sends an email to the parent and the counselor and the principal of that school. So we're going to prevent any of these acts before they happen because we know what they're doing. Our app establishes a watch area around that person's address and the school, and it deploys a drone to follow that person wherever they go. So you'll have a video feed of what they're going to do before they do it. So we're going to give the police a heads up about what's being planned through all of the evidence that we collect. And then when there is a response, our system has a 1 through 5 rating system, 1 being not that big of a deal and 5 being a real emergency. As it progresses through to level 5, we give the police and first responders not only video feed, not only evidence that we've collected on the campus, but all the information of what room they're in, what teacher they're in, the role of the list of names in the classroom, and you're going to have all the information for the first responders of exactly where to go. And our geofence on our app gives them a view where they can see the person that has the gun, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller as they get closer to that person, so they can't never escape.
Thank you. You may be speaking, great testimony, thank you, and love the Braves hat. And as a reminder, Braves open April 5th against the Diamondbacks.
Go Braves.
Go Braves. Your comments may be geared toward Alyssa's loss.
Well, it's for both, because this
okay.
is that we have
Perfect.
our core competency is the Uber for police function.
Perfect.
Where officers get a raise, teachers are protected, kids stay in school and come back from homeschool, and the whole community feels safer. But then the AI bot can start getting the evidence of someone planning something way before they actually execute it.
Got it.
So we're able to get the information prior to them actually pulling the gun out and going to the school.
Gotcha.
So, and then the visibility of the police in front of the school will be a deterrent, and then gathering all the information for the first responders is also a big help.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I would love to schedule meetings with any of you guys in the future if you'd let me talk with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
God bless
I
you
know
guys.
we'll
Thank you.
Stick around. Thank you. With that, we have Ms. Sarah Hunt Blackwell, ACLU, Georgia.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Hunt Blackwell. I'm the First Amendment policy advocate with the ACLU of Georgia. The ACLU of Georgia opposes SB 351 because young people have the right to access social media, and we believe that this bill makes Georgians susceptible to dangerous data privacy infringements. We agree that all internet content is not suitable for minors, but this bill is not about pornography. It's about social media. We understand concerns about the impacts of social media on children, but we must situate these concerns within the context of our United States Constitution. The right to express oneself online and the right to access information are each protected by the First Amendment. And the U.S. Supreme Court has already established that these protections apply even to minors. That said, it does make sense to try to protect young people from harms of the internet, but that protection should come from parents themselves, not the state government's regulatory impositions on social media companies. Impositions that are ineffective and impractical, might I add. Under SB 351, parents may consent to their children having social media accounts using a number of age verification methods. Most of the methods can be easily circumvented by minors themselves or other adults in young people's lives who could falsify the age verification information. The most problematic of the listed methods include parents uploading their own government-issued IDs or financial information. The bill says that this information must be deleted, but does not indicate when this deletion should occur. The vagueness of this provision could allow social media companies to hold on to parents' sensitive information long enough to sell or redistribute it to third parties, and then arbitrarily delete the information afterward. The companies would technically be in compliance with the bill, but still be subjecting people to data privacy dangers. SB 351 doesn't only impact young people, though. For adults, the language of the bill is wholly silent on acceptable age verification methods and what social media companies can do with their age verification information. So, as the intent of this bill is aimed at protecting children, it actually leaves children and adults largely unprotected. Much like forging parent signatures on report cards or permission slips, young people will find ways to access social media without legitimate parental consent. Age verification methods invade personal privacy of all social media users and can likely be bypassed with little effort. SB 351 is not the solution to protecting young people online, and we ask that this committee please vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start. I have just a couple quick questions. You started your comment saying the bill removed the right, but then you made note that it was easy for them to bypass. Are you saying two different things? Or are those in conflict with each other?
I'm sorry, remove the right to...
Remove the right to social media for children, for minors.
Oh, no. Minors do have the right to access social media per
You
the
said the bill
Supreme Court.
removed it, though, yet at the same time, it's easy for them to bypass it.
Yeah, but just because they can bypass, there shouldn't be an obstacle in place for something that's already their right. The point is they're going to access it anyway, but this bill makes it difficult and infringes on their constitutional right to do so.
So let me run another scenario by you. I work at a bank. I have a right to social media, free speech, yet when I'm at work, they block access to social media sites. Is that different than what we're doing here?
So that's a different part of the bill. I'm not speaking to the part of the bill that restricts social media access at school. The bill restricts social media access for anyone under the age of 16 at all, whether they're at school or not, and that's what we oppose.
Is there a question down front? Mr. Chairman.
Do I need to go to that one? Is it working?
You're good.
Great. Thank you, man. Ms. Blackwell, just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Early in your talk, you sound like you were okay with it if it prohibited a child from accessing pornography online. Is that what you meant?
No, we understand that there is a greater risk with pornography, and that's what I'm getting at there.
Yeah, because ACLU vigorously opposed House Bill 910.
For the same reasons, yes, for the age verification.
That prohibited young people from accessing pornography.
Yes.
So tell me which side are you on this?
We're not advocating for kids to access porn. What we're advocating against age verification requirements.
So then how, I would love to see a suggestion of what you would think would be appropriate for this bill or any other bill that would limit minors' access to pornography or objectable material.
Absolutely. I'm happy to speak more specifically with anyone who wants to talk about it, but generally we believe that it's on parents to determine the best ways of going about limiting social media for their for their children, not this body.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to go down front here. Representative Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think you answered my question. There's two sections to the bill, one in the schools and one in the, just general public. And
right.
I think the schools make sense because I think a lot of the schools already have that, is my understanding.
Right. Yes.
And but the age verification is the thing that's tripping me up because on lines 389 to 390, I'm trying to figure out how the social media companies know that someone's under the age of 18. And I say that because I just happened to go to a local brewer and it says, are you over 21 or not? And all I got to do is hit a plus and I'm in. And so how does that work with this? Or are we going to have to upload our ID? Because I'm even hesitant to upload my ID anywhere because I just don't believe that it will be deleted. So the age verification part, though I believe that kids should not be accessing this, I don't know how we do that without violating privacy.
That is our exact concern.
Okay.
Yeah, Representative Wilkerson, I'll try to answer that a little bit. Yeah, so just from researching the other bill, social media platforms employ AI to screen for minor accounts. So it's interesting. Facebook, I guess, has an algorithm that, say a minor signs up at the age of 11, but he says he's 22, and all his friends jump on and say, happy 11th birthday, that sends off, and Facebook then changes that to a minor account. So they employ different algorithms to search the platform for things like that. Yeah.
So with that, thank you for that. That's very helpful. If they're already doing that, then what are we doing here? That's where I struggle is if they're already doing it, they have the capability. I'm trying to think what we're doing here if they're already limiting that account.
I'll let the bill author speak to that. Yeah, good question. Representative Evans.
That's all right. I was making the point about public.
Okay, perfect. Seeing no other questions, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. We have one other speaker, Chelsea Thompson, Frontline Policy.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Chelsea Thompson. I am General Counsel of Frontline Policy. I am here to share our support for SB 351, sponsored by Senator Jason Anavitarte. The implementation of age verification measures for minors accessing social media platforms is essential to mitigate the numerous negative impacts that unrestricted social media access can have on our children. Social media platforms have become ubiquitous in the lives of young people, providing unprecedented access to a vast array of content and interactions. And while these platforms offer numerous benefits, they also present a significant risks, particularly when accessed by minors without proper safeguards in place. Is the mic going in and out? Can you guys hear okay? Okay. Because on my end, it sounds like it's going in and out. Sorry about that. Some risks of social media are exposure to harmful and inappropriate content, including violence, explicit imagery, and hate speech, and exposure to cyberbullying and exploitation, to name a few. The impact of this exposure has been shown to cause lasting psychological effects and can be detrimental to mental health as well. It can overstimulate the brain's reward center and lead to addiction. It has also been linked to sleep problems, attention problems, anxiety and depression, and issues of self-esteem and body image, normalization of risk-taking behaviors, and feelings of exclusion in adolescence, just to name a few. 97% of children as young as 12 are now on social media, and despite almost 70% actually saying that social media makes them feel stressed, anxious, and depressed. 95% say they felt helpless when it came to quitting their online habit. Moreover, unrestricted access to social media can facilitate online predation and exploitation of minors by malicious individuals. Predators often utilize social media platforms to groom and manipulate young users, exploiting their naivety and trust. So age verification would also serve as a crucial barrier there, making it more difficult for predators to target vulnerable children. Some claim that the government should stay out of matters relating to children's online access, and that the decision ultimately belongs to the parents. And we wholeheartedly affirm that decisions pertaining to a child's time online belong to parents. And the age verification requirements in this bill will place these choices and others back into the hands of parents across Georgia. By implementing these measures, we can help limit minors' exposure to these harmful effects and encourage healthier online behaviors. And for these reasons, we ask for a favorable vote by the committee on SB 351.
Thank you. And guys, I'm going to ask lightning round on questions here. We've got 3, so I'm going to limit you to 1 if you can make them pretty good. Do you have one for the bill author?
Yes.
Okay. And y'all's for the speaker? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Representative Wilkerson, you're live.
Real quick, I'm just curious. It treats every 16-year-old as a minor. What is that? How does that work if you are, say, married or whatever? I know it's a random question, but we do have the age of consent.
Right. That might actually be a question for the author in this situation. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. Author, now's your time. Senator, did you get that question?
No, I didn't get that question.
Okay. Dave, you're,
go ahead and ask it again.
Your mic.
Come on.
Quick. I know that we've had this discussion in juvenile justice as far as the age of consent and marriage. What happens if you're 16 and you're married? Do you still have to go to your parent to get access to social media and Facebook?
I mean, under this language, 16, you're a minor. So.
Okay. One more question, Representative Cox. Or 2 more questions.
Love it. Everything about it. I think there's a lot to it. I really want to dive into it more. And I'm also understanding in a classroom, students find a way to get access to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone else has it, they'll find a way to get it. The older sibling that may be 19, they'll find a way. It just happens. That's the world we live in.
Are we talking about in a classroom or outside the classroom?
They'll take
You're just saying they're in the
a
world.
19-year-old to give their sibling or someone a phone that did it to the classroom that's not under their name, but there's ways that they'll find a way to get it.
Right.
So putting up some guardrails is always a great thing. My question is, what is the Georgia Department of Education's policy currently on social media?
So I'm not going to speak for the superintendent's office, but I know they have some policies in place. I know there are some levels of security in place, but I would say that across the state that is inconsistent in some areas in terms of who has access to a network and who doesn't. I know there are kids that have iPads that may not have, I'm using this as an example, that may not have, cellular access on an iPad, but the only way you can get on the network is through Wi-Fi. So like that kind of device, as it relates to getting on a Meta app or something like that, they would be denied access through the school network, as an example.
So in line 76, it says the Department of Education shall periodically update the model programs provided, changes in internet social media use. My question would be, so we're depending on the Department of Education to be the one to determine where we're going here?
In terms of creating the model policies for the school boards, yeah, usually they're the ones who are.
So each school system will have their own, or
we'll have so they'll develop a model from what I was on the school board, they would hand down a model policy, and sometimes we would maybe tweak or upgrade that model policy as it relates to what we want to do in our school district, and then that's what the school board would adopt based on the superintendent and school board attorney's recommendation.
Seems a little open-ended to some degree on how that school system could determine that. That's all I'm concerned about. But Thank you for this, Bill.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to my far right, Vice Chairman Ballard.
I moved you pass.
All right. We've got two more questions, and at the appropriate time, I will recognize you. One more question, Chairman. Jasper, yep.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Avatardi. Okay, so just about two questions. If we hopefully move this bill on today, but there should be some consideration based on the testimony of the gentleman that talked first, about 40% of the kids 8 to 12 being involved in it, that we look at doing it to the third grade, maybe second. I'm no expert on this, but I'd love some input from some others on getting it down. As you and I were talking,
right.
it might be better, and making sure that maybe after Representative Cox's comment that this is available for parents. And I think the parents will see it as the local school board adopts the rules, and they'll be public in making sure that parents have input into what local system's doing as it regards to this.
Yeah, I think that's part of that. Hopefully that school board process that they are allowing kind of that public comment and hearing from parents. I would say in ways for most school districts, I don't want to say this is going to create in the school setting, at least that part of the bill, any sort of culture shock. But I think we're sending the message that we don't need to be on social media. We don't need to be on Facebook. We don't need to be on Instagram. We don't need to be on these things while kids are basically trying to get through algebra and physics and everything else while they're in that classroom environment. I always joke I was joking with a reporter the other day that, back when I was at school, all I had was a beeper and a BlackBerry was just created. And I was still using pencil and paper and one of those, TGI 55 fancy calculators. My daughter still uses one of those, to basically do math. And we didn't have all these inherent distractions. But also, too, I think from a social perspective, one of my biggest concerns is the access to these sites and the real-time bullying that is going on in these schools. And so, while I do, hear the ACLU's, perspective on, data privacy, and freedom of expression, just like most things under the age of 18, you basically got a right to do nothing. I'm just being honest with you. That's just me as a dad speaking. So you ain't driving, you ain't drinking, you're barely on your phone. My oldest daughter has a phone. She's in 10th grade. my other kids ain't getting a phone until they get to high school. It's every parent's decision. But I think all the, we're if kids want to be adults, they can be adults when they're 18, not while they're in a K-5 setting or in a middle school setting where these technologies, where they're not mature enough, and they're basically using these technologies to basically, in some cases, yes, do positive, but let's also weigh the seriousness of, the things that our law enforcement officers, our school resource officers, our principals, our teachers, in that academic setting are having to chase down information from other kids because, there's a threat in the school or somebody's being bullied or, hey, some kid's going to get jumped at the bus stop. And that's being pushed out on Instagram or whatever. That's the real life scenario of what we're dealing with here. And I will tell you as the dad of 3 daughters, I think enough's enough. And I think as leaders, we have to step up and get this done. And, there's going to be challenges along the way and a debate, and we can continue to have that debate. But this bill passed with an overwhelming majority of my body passing it, and I hope it does in the House also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. With that quick point of personal privilege, all this talk about social media, you can follow me at Scott Hilton, Scott Hilton GA, at Scott Hilton GA. So first follower, gets an award.
Just watch your daily videos, right?
Yeah, I do a great reel. One quick lightning fast question, Representative Evans.
Yes, thank you so much, Chairman. So I just wanted to confirm, so the first part of the bill is about the DOE having this new training, but the last part, Section 3, means that any person 16 years or younger will, in order to have an account, a parent will have to give permission on social media. Is that right?
Yeah, social media, as I stated before, social media platforms have to make commercially reasonable efforts to verify the age of an account holder.
Okay, and will that be retroactive, or will it just be anyone, when the bill goes into effect, it'll be
as of July 1st, 2025.
Okay, so
what's currently in the bill.
So will they have to do how will they know where to start? Who's...
I'm not following
Well, I mean,
your
so
question.
if you're 16 years old, how do they know who to send the request to provide ID?
Well, each of, and I'll use Meta as an example because they do it fairly well. They have portals within their sites where basically if I'm a minor, you go through those steps to basically verify accounts and et cetera, et cetera. So if I'm a minor, obviously I'm going to go ask my parent or guardian.
Right.
That's where I'm going to start.
But I'm saying
Hopefully.
that if the minor's already on the account, how will they know which minors have to do it? I guess, because basically won't everyone have to
I think
provide
it'll
an
be
ID?
as we're basically moving forward.
Really, all adults will have to provide an ID to prove they're not a minor. Is that right? Or
No, this will be only for minors.
All right, Representative Evans. Yeah, we're gonna move on here. Yeah, thank y'all. With that, I believe Bethany, Representative Ballard had a motion.
Do pass.
Do I have a second? Any discussion on the motion? I believe we have an amendment to be proposed. I will do Walker and then you, if that's okay. Walker, you are live.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend accepting the amended proposed by the author, inserting after the word chapter on line 426 the following: and the authority to take action pursuant to Part 2 of Article 15 of Chapter 1 of Title 10, the Fair Business Practices Act of 1975.
All right. Do I have a motion on that amendment? Motion to pass. I have a second on that. On the second. All right. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. And then back to the motion. Discussion on that. Lightning fast.
Lightning fast. Number 6. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am going to vote yes today, but my concern is that there are a number of changes that came up today that I would love to see the author take, so I'm going to move it because I think it's a great intent. It's just the challenge is that there's a couple of things that we brought up today that I would love to get with the author and see if we could make those changes before it goes to full committee.
Perfect. Thank you. With that, seeing no other discussion, I'll call to question. All in favor of the motion to do pass, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. And motion passes. Thank you. Yep. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the policy subcommittee, to be followed by your favorite, the curriculum subcommittee.
Before I met you, I was like knocking on the door and they'd be like, this is a cool experience. You do a great job. Are we allowed to talk to them at all? Or?
Yeah, you can talk to them. She is going to have some in just a second. It's a different subcommittee. They're both subcommittees of education. There's the educational subcommittee, and there's policy subcommittee, and there's curriculum subcommittee.
Okay.
So, God is the chairman of the subcommittee for policy. There's usually different.
Okay, we're going to get started in 2 or 3 minutes. If you'll take your seats or move out into the hallway. Okay, we're going to get started in 2 or 3 minutes. If you'll take your seats, or if you want to continue your conversation, if you'll carry that on out in the hallway. What? What?
She picked up the wrong one.
Oh,
I
gosh.
think I have it. Let me go.
Okay. They printed the wrong bill.
Oh, you're right. Dude, we're about to pass.
Okay.
Pass Huntston's bill. Don't call anyway.
Oh, no. And like today, so actually there was a colleague of mine, I don't know here an hour ago now, who was sitting on the steps like this. In the sun. And I walked out and I was like, Hayden, man, you got the right answer.
Yeah, my turn. Sorry, I was just registering for water.
Good feet store. I have good feet store insert, so.
For basketball?
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting of the House Education Curriculum Subcommittee to order. Representative Hilton, would you open us in a word of prayer? Because you did it to me.
Lord, we know Andy Rose. I think 14. Yep. Bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this beautiful day, great weather outside, and the people in this room. We pray that you give us wisdom so that we do the best thing for our parents, families, and students, and that Georgia becomes that beacon on a hill that other states look to and say, what are they doing there? And that we would just lead the way in education. We pray these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. So, thank you for coming today. This is a large audience, and so today we are going to hear Senate Bill 169. And Senator Payne, if you'll come up, you can go ahead and tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Committee. This is quite a simple bill, but for 30 years as a state juvenile probation officer, I saw this too many times. It always made me uncomfortable when kids were just falling through the cracks because they were getting discipline problems at school, caught them and left them stranded where they were just hanging out there for weeks sometimes, and they're just falling further and further and further behind and just keep digging themselves deeper and deeper into a hole. And so that's the point of Senate Bill 169, is to address that. It's quite simply, I know everybody says they have simple bills, but this really is a simple bill. So what does Senate Bill 169 do? It amends current law to require timely school disciplinary hearings for students within 15 school days unless a parent requests an extension, and requires schools to provide instructional materials to students while waiting for the disciplinary process to end. And I'll be glad to take any questions if you have any.
Chairman Dubnik.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this. Thank you, Madam Chair. We've talked about this before, and I appreciate your passion behind this and bringing this from your experience on the job. And I think this is something that we definitely need, and it's good for the students and the family. So, Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I'll make a motion.
Okay, it looks like the appropriate time.
Move to pass.
Oh.
And if I may, Madam Chair, just for the record, this is a substitute bill that we've brought to the committee, and this is LC 491887S.
Good. We are on the same page then. So we have a motion to pass. Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Are those opposed, like sign? Okay, it passes, and you are on to full.
Thank you very much, committee.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Dixon, and we've got SB 395. And you can present anytime you want to.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Grateful to be bringing SB 395 before you today. This bill hits home for me. It's named Wesley's Law after my wife, cousin Wesley Gay, passed away from taking a substance, and unbeknownst to him, it was laced with fentanyl, and he lost his life. And it's happening. It's not just a Metro Atlanta issue or a Georgia issue. It's a national issue that's happening even in my local county that I share with Representative Hilton. At Burtmar High School, we've lost 3 students already this year from overdoses. And simply what the bill does is currently only the nurse in a school can administer it, and it can only be kept in the clinic. This bill would open that up to where employees or visitors, teachers, administrators, anyone could carry it and administer it. It also has protections in there for the school employees and for the school systems where whether they decide to administer it if they believe there's an overdose or if they decide not to, there's immunity there where they couldn't be sued civilly. So it protects them as well. Narcan or naloxone, it's an over-the-counter medicine. It's administered through a nasal swab. There's no known side effects to the drug, and the shelf life's about 3 years. The bill also requires schools to keep a supply on hand. We've left that language very vague and also included in there if there's a shortage of Narcan or naloxone that the school could not be penalized for not keeping it on hand. Wanted to leave that loose so school systems in rural Georgia, if they have difficulty getting it or funds available, that they would not be penalized for that. But there are several grant funds, and there's also money in the state opioid settlement fund where schools could get that funds to keep that on hand. And then there's a friendly amendment from Representative Dubnik where initially in the bill we had students could also carry it, and kind of the thought process there was more kind of geared towards high school students. But in talking with several folks and the representative, potentially with elementary or middle school students who could may find it where they may play with it or may not be responsible enough or old enough to understand how to even administer it. So would be very friendly amendment to strike students and remove that from the bill. Be happy to answer any questions.
Representative Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this excellent bill. Just one question. Is it not true the House passed a budget this afternoon?
It is true, yes, sir. Thank you all for doing that.
At the appropriate time, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have one other question. Representative Dana.
Hi, first of all, my condolences for your loss.
Thank you.
I'm sure a lot of passion went into writing this bill and concern. But going back to looking at lines 39 through 41, my concern there is really, it says school personnel who in good faith administers or chooses not to administer on opioid, it says shall be immune from civil liability. How do we know that? I mean, of course, everyone should administer in good faith, but how do we know that for some reason someone might do something otherwise? How do we protect the person that's administering the opioid antagonist?
Yeah, and the intent in that language is if a teacher or personnel, they believe someone is experiencing an overdose, it creates immunity for them whether they administer it or not. So they're not going to be held liable, if they do administer it and it's a false overdose, or if they choose not to and go get the school nurse. So it protects them.
Basic training or?
Yes. Yeah. There's no
Will it
training.
require
Sorry,
training?
I misspoke there. There's no training required. It's not an injection. It's just a nasal swab. So you open
Okay.
it, and like you said, you can buy it right now over the counter. Saw it the other day at the front of CVS where you check out. So it's very simple to administer. No training's necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple of people to speak to the bill. Jeff Breedlove. Thank you, Senator. You can step aside
Thank you,
for
Madam
a second.
Chairwoman.
So this is, I'm Jeff Breedlove, a person in long-term recovery from addiction, and I'm here on behalf of the Georgia Council for Recovery. This is an answer to prayer. I mean, this is a chance for other states to look at what Georgia is doing and leading the way and saving lives. This is what we're talking about. This right here is a miracle drug. If a person in a school experiences an overdose, and it could be a teacher, by the way, or a student, or a visitor, if you get this to them within 4 minutes, you'll save their lives. If you don't, they'll die. Anybody can use it. You open it up, you pop it off, you stick it in their nose, you save their life. Thousands of lives have been saved around Georgia because of this device. And the place we need them most, I have a son who just graduated Maynard Jackson High School. You could walk there from here, and he's now a college student. And I've been to the funeral of people at Maynard Jackson. And we need to save our students and our teachers. So I want to thank the senator for bringing this bill. I want to thank the committee for their consideration of this bill. It will save lives, and recovery is real. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me call Rodney Kay.
Madam Chair, I think I need to testify with representatives.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So I will toss it back to Representative Hilton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Chairman Dubnik.
Madam Chair, at the appropriate time, I'd like to offer an amendment.
Okay. This seems to be the appropriate time.
Members, if you'll look with me on line 22, we would remove the second word, student, and the following comma. Again, that's just so that our schools have the ability to take that out of the hands of a student who decides to be silly or inappropriate or not responsible with it. So simply removing the word student and the accompanying comma.
Okay, is there a second for this amendment?
Second.
Yes.
If we could just also remove the comma following visitor for conformity, so it would just read no visitor or school employee.
Sounds good to me.
I'm not a lawyer. That is a friendly amendment, Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for correcting our punctuation. We appreciate it. Okay, so we have an amendment and a second. Do we have any discussion? Representative Dana, did you have discussion? No. Okay. Good. So all those in favor of the Chairman Dubnik's amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, the amendment passes. So we have a motion and a second on SB 395. Shall this bill now pass as amended? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, great. It passes and you are on to full.